Compendium Podcast hosted by Leadership Books. In just a moment, our host, Joseph Baker, will be joining us, along with a very special guest. Before we get started, I would like to introduce you to Joseph. He's a podcaster, event producer, writer, speaker, and audience builder. His passion is to help authors, speakers, and entrepreneurs build their audiences to monetize their leadership. Won't you please welcome our host, Joseph Baker.
Well, welcome everyone to a very special episode of the Compendium Podcast hosted by Leadership Books. I am here today with Dr. Freddy Davis and also Dr. Tal Davis. I'll start with Dr. Freddy's intro and bio here. Dr. Freddy Davis is the president of MarketFaith Ministries. He is the author of numerous books entitled The Truth Mirage, Rules for Christian Radicals, Liberalism versus Conservatism, and has a background as an international missionary, pastor, radio host, worldview trainer, and entrepreneur. Freddie is a graduate of Florida State University with a BS in communication and holds MDiv and DMin degrees from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. He is a popular speaker, particularly on the topic of worldview and its practical implications for the Christian life. He lives in Tallahassee, Florida, with his wife, Deborah. So first of all, I welcome you, Dr. Freddy Davis, to the Compendium Podcast. And
Pleasure being here.
Absolutely. And then I also want to introduce Dr. Tal Davis. We have a dual interview today. So Dr. Tal Davis is the Executive Vice President of MarketFaith Ministries. He has spent many years in denominational work as an interfaith witness specialist. He's also served as a senior pastor and a church staff member. And Tal lives in Flowery Branch, Georgia, with his wife, Barbara. Welcome, Dr. Tal Davis.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so very excited for this interview. This is the first time I'm meeting you, Dr. Tal Davis, but Dr. Freddy Davis, you and I have hung out and near the coast, or at least in Orlando, Florida. We got to hang out several months back. So great to see you again. Excited to hear more about your books, your ministries, your lives. So let's start with you, Dr. Freddy Davis. What are you up to these days? What are you excited about?
Well, I guess the big thing that we're excited about, and maybe the reason we're doing the podcast today, is we've got a new book that's just coming out right now as we speak. It's an expression or kind of the next step after the Truth Mirage, the previous book that I did with Leadership Books. And this one is called Shattering the Truth Mirage. And it's going to be about how to share a witness across worldview barriers.
That is really good. Really, really good. And we will get back to that and follow up with that after we also introduce Dr. Tal Davis. So, Dr. Tal, tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days, and also what are you excited about?
Well, I guess I'm excited because I've been working with Freddie now for about a little over 10 years. And we've done a lot of writing. We have a good website called MarketFaith.org, and we invite people to check that out. We also have a weekly newsletter in which we provide articles on subjects dealing with worldview and religious beliefs and practices and trends. So, that's been exciting. Of course, this new book coming out, we think will really fill a void that there is in the Christian worldview issue, because when people try to witness, a lot of times they've learned a witness process, which is good, and they use it. But what we have discovered, and especially in our work in missions, is there are a lot of people out there who just don't understand. They don't know the Bible. They don't know very much about Christianity. And so when we just kind of start telling them the gospel in a sort of program way, they don't always understand. And so in this new book, we hope we can meet that need to help people understand how to do that.
That's really good. And how would you describe, sort of in a nutshell, the difference between the Truth Mirage and Shattering the Truth Mirage? What's the difference between these two books?
Well, the Truth Mirage is kind of a foundational book on worldview. What is worldview? What are the worldview possibilities? How do you understand that concept? It's not the traditional approach to thinking about church and church life, Christian life that has existed in American churches, I don't know, maybe since America's founding. It's more of a missionary approach to understanding how to interact with other people. A worldview literally is an understanding, a person's understanding of reality, how they distinguish between what's real and what's fantasy. And everybody's got a worldview. And every religion, cult, and philosophy is built on the foundation of some worldview. In America, in our history, throughout our history, Christian theism has been the foundation of American society. And it's only been within the last, 2 or 3 decades that other worldview beliefs have become dominant or prominent, at least, and dominant in a lot of areas. And so the problem is when you have different people who understand reality and fantasy in entirely different ways, when you try to talk to them, particularly about faith matters, then if you're trying to explain how they can know Christ, then they listen to you and they're thinking, okay, that's fantasy. That's not real. And so communicating across that barrier has become a challenge in American society that didn't used to be there. My background, as you mentioned in my bio, is as an international missionary. And obviously, as a missionary, one of the things that we had to do was go to a place that the society really was founded on a different worldview foundation. And so typically the work of a missionary is to go to a place like that and be able to cross that barrier to share the gospel. When we returned to the States, one of the things that kind of slapped me in the face was the fact that American society had radically changed, and no longer were we the homogeneous society, everybody at least understanding Christian theistic ideas. Now it's all over the place. And what used to be more typical for missionaries to have to understand in order to share our message, now every Christian needs to have this knowledge. And so, like Tal mentioned, we kind of saw that hole, that gap, and we're wrote this book for the purpose of kind of filling that gap, to teach everyday Christians how they can communicate across worldview barriers.
That's very good. Very good. And what have you found has been the most effective way to train people? Is it through distribution of your books? Is it through workshops? Is it through speaking engagements, one-on-one conversations with leaders? I'm just curious, what have you found is the most effective way to impart this knowledge and this training to people?
Really, all of the above. We obviously create the resources, the books, and Tal mentioned the articles that we do. Every week, we write articles that have to do with some aspect of communicating the gospel, in a worldview environment that is pluralistic in a way that it didn't used to be. But we do blogs, but we also obviously have the books, and we will be continuing to have more books come out on the Truth Mirage series that deal with other aspects. But we also do in-person training for churches, and are in the process also of developing other kinds of video training resources that will become available in the future as well, so that we can reach as many people as we possibly can.
That's great. That's great. Tal, let me jump back over to you. I'm a little bit more familiar with Freddy's story and his journey, but let's get into your journey a little bit. How has your experience as a pastor and also, church staff member, I'm sure at various seasons, how has that translated into what you're doing now? How's that journey been like for you?
Well, it's like I said earlier, when people in churches learn how to do evangelism, most of the time they study using a sort of programmed approach, which is good. everybody needs to learn how to share the basic Christian gospel in a concise and, clear way. But as I said, what I discovered years ago was that when I'm witnessing to people from other backgrounds, as Freddie called it, other worldviews, maybe from another country, or even in America, America has become so naturalistic in its approach. The education and everything is built on that naturalistic worldview, that there's no supernatural, everything is controlled by the laws of physics and so forth. When I talk to those people, they don't really get it. And when you share the gospel, or when you quote the Bible, in many cases they don't even trust the Bible. So what I learned, and what I think is true, is that we need to find ways to bridge that gap between what we as Christians understand, the worldview we have, the theistic worldview, and the worldviews that many Americans today have, and so that they can really sort of start at the basic level. And so in my experience as a pastor, and especially in my experience in interfaith evangelism, I did that for 20-something years. And, I dealt with people from other countries, other religions, and, you just realize that you've got to be able to talk their language and sort of slowly and basically show them just what Christianity is about, what our belief in God is about, before we can really share with them the basic gospel. And it takes time sometimes. You have to be patient and loving and try to reach across those barriers.
That's really good. Can either of you just give us a specific example? Maybe there's something from the book, or maybe just real life conversations you've had. Give us an example of a real world scenario where you've had to do that very thing of bridging the gap. Maybe a person from a certain culture or religion or background, where you had to figure out how to shape your communication in a way that actually resonated with them. Would either of you have an example of that?
Yeah, in fact, on our MarketFaith Ministries website, there's a whole section on there of conversations that I personally have had with on social media, mostly of people from all different kinds of backgrounds, naturalists, people from other religions, people from other cult groups. I remember in particular there was a guy that I dealt with actually not too terribly long ago that he was a Unitarian. He didn't believe in the Trinity, and he was coming across in a very authoritative manner. And so I engaged him in that Facebook conversation. And I didn't know initially kind of what his background was, but he was really, really adamant that God is not expressed as a Trinity. And I came to find out that the guy had previously been a Jehovah's Witness, but he'd gotten disenfranchised with them and had left the Jehovah's Witness, but he hadn't left their theology. And so the Unitarian aspect of that was very front and center in what he did. But what I found out too from another person was that not only had he left Jehovah's Witnesses, but he was still very much an advocate for his Unitarian theology, and he would go to different churches and wouldn't tell them what he believed. He would just go in and start making friends, and then slowly start throwing in his Unitarian philosophy, and it was really creating a lot of havoc in a lot of people's lives. And so, from that, it just kind of reinforced me in my thinking, how important it is for Christians to be able to, first of all, when they hear false beliefs, to understand that they're false beliefs and what they are, so that you can answer those people, so that you can share with them the truth. And so that's one fairly recent example, but like I said, there's just a whole slew of those kinds of conversations on our website that if people that are interested in reading about that and seeing the kind of arguments people make and the kind of responses that we as Christians need to give, it's in there very quite a bit of it.
Let me say one thing, Freddie. Why don't you take a minute just to explain to the viewers and listeners what those 4 worldviews are, because I think that's kind of the foundational, principle of what we're talking about. So Freddie's really has that knowledge. So if you would share that, I think they'd appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. The way that we deal with the topic of worldview is that every religion, cult, and philosophy that exists in the world is based on one of 4 foundational worldviews. And theism is the one that our Christian faith is based on. It's a belief that there is a creator God who created man, created the universe. But Christianity is not the only theistic belief system. There are other ones out there as well. So we need to make, distinctions about the God that the Bible teaches, and sometimes the God that other faiths will teach. But theism is one of them. Naturalism is probably the belief that is most dominant in American society these days, and it's the belief that the natural universe, operating by natural laws, is all that exists. But then there's also animism, which is the belief that there are spirits and gods that exist and express themselves through nature. Religions such as voodoo and Wicca and some of those, are all animistic belief systems. And then the one we call Far Eastern thought is really kind of pantheism, monism, which covers like Hinduism and Buddhism and those kinds of religions that believe that there's an impersonal life force. It's the Star Wars idea, that there's an impersonal life force that's actual reality, and the expression of the natural universe is it exists, but it's illusory. It doesn't exist in the same form as the actual reality, which is the impersonal life force. So every religion, cult, and philosophy that exists in the world is based on one of those, or sometimes a combination of those. And so if we understand those, then it makes it very easy for us to understand where somebody's coming from. There's a lot of differences between the different religions that are out there, even in the same worldview. But every single belief system that is founded on a particular worldview all have the same basic foundation. Makes it very, very easy using this approach to analyze and compare our Christian faith to others and analyze for truth.
And the book gives the methodology or the procedures that we've learned for someone to kind of analyze what a person's worldview is. Asking certain questions about their belief about God, about humanity, about life after death. All these things we can pretty much gauge where a person is coming from in their worldview, and then we can start there to know what to do or say to lead into the gospel of Christ.
That's very good. Thank you for sharing all of that. Very helpful also to break it down, which also gives a bit of a preview, of some of your material. We're very much looking forward to your upcoming book. Freddie, I've actually been able to contribute towards some of the marketing copy already for some of the upcoming promotions that we'll be doing for your book. Very excited for that as far as the leadership books front. So if someone's listening or watching this today and they, number one, are intrigued to get the your past book and your upcoming book, tell us where they can go for that. But also tell us where they can go to learn more about MarketFaith Ministries, because I know that there are churches, pastors, leaders, organizations that would love to have both of you come and actually do some training and provide some resources. So where can we find those two things?
Well, obviously the MarketFaith Ministries website is www.marketfaith.org, is a tremendous resource, we believe. All of the newsletters and blogs and videos and just a lot of different resources are hosted there that people can just go and access for free. And then, of course, also our the books that we have, there's a link on there to be able to order those. Also, specifically for our books that we're doing, we've been doing with leadership books, can be found on freddydavis.org. I think that we're getting ready to have Tal his own link as well, but as of right now, freddydavis.org is it .org or .com? I never go to that one. I think maybe it's .com, but is a place where somebody can go to the Leadership Books website and order those directly.
Excellent. If you
let me say one more.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Let me say one thing about our website. For a pastor, that website is a treasure trove of information, for answering questions, for learning how to witness, and also for even for doing sermons. I know pastors are looking for ideas and stuff to do for messages that they want to give. And, I think our website is just, it has lots of material that they could utilize.
That's good. So pastors, go to the site, steal their information, quote them once, and then you can own it after that.
We don't mind. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all for the kingdom. So that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today for this episode of the Compendium Podcast. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I think we have a good sense for who you guys are, your ministry, your purpose, really the goals that you have. And I have just one more question that I'd like to pitch to you guys, and I'd like each of you to answer it if you could. If somebody were to let's talk about the upcoming book, right? Shattering the Truth Mirage. Imagine somebody orders it. They go to leadershipbooks.com, shameless plug there, grab the book, and they're sitting down, they read it, they get through the book. What sort of an impact, how would that person feel after they read that book? I'll go to you first, Freddy.
Well, it's our hope and desire that they will feel empowered. One of the things that is so prominent these days in churches is that with all of the pluralism in religious belief that is out in society these days, it's very easy for Christians to get confused. They don't know how to answer people's questions about faith. Maybe don't even understand, how what they're saying is different from one that somebody else is saying. And so this book is just powerfully full of all kind of knowledge and information that will make light bulbs start going off in people's heads as they begin to understand, okay, this is why I have a hard time understanding them. This is why they're confused at what I'm saying, and gain a grasp of how to communicate in a way that actually crosses that barrier in an understandable way.
How about you, Tal?
Well, I would say that if someone read this book, the first thing that would impress them is how practical it is. This is not just theoretical stuff. This is stuff that people can actually utilize in their life and in their churches to reach out. And this, we have such a diverse society today, people from all backgrounds. We need new ways to reach out. And I think a person reading our book would say, wow, this is kind of what I've been looking for, to know how to reach out better.
And on top of that, let me just mention as well, people that have done previews of the book, one of the things that that gets commented on a lot are the appendices that we have in the book. There's a treasure trove of information about different religions, different faiths, about how to express the gospel using different methodologies, how the worldview concepts fit into all of that. And it's a real powerful, I think, resource that people who are interested in sharing their faith in our modern society are going to find very, very useful.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us today on the Compendium Podcast. Be sure for our listeners and viewers, visit freddydavis.com or org. You'll find out once you go click on it. And then also MarketFaith Ministries. Is it marketfaith.org?
Yes, marketfaith.org.
Okay. I want to make sure I get that right. Marketfaith.org. Keep an eye out for the new book upcoming on leadershipbooks.com. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for using your time. Time is the one resource that we cannot get back right on this earth. And so thank you for dedicating your time and your effort and your passion towards this. I was reminded real quickly, Freddie, of our time in Florida several months back, and on our sort of day off after the conference, we're sitting under the cabana, and you were there with your bride and a few of us from Leadership Books. And I just remember you just couldn't stop talking about this type of ministry. It just kind of comes out of you. So I know that this is what you live. This is what you embody. It's not just a book to write or go on a shelf. This is your life's work. And so I appreciate that. And it clearly is yours as well, Tal. So I appreciate that with you. So yes, check out those websites, leadershipbooks.com, and we will catch everyone in the next episode.
Thank you for joining us for today's broadcast. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And be sure to visit us online at leadershipbooks.store. There you'll find the works of some of the finest thought leaders today. And be sure to tune in here each week to gain even deeper insights from one of those leaders on the Compendium Podcast.